Disclaimer. This video exists for the purposes of entertainment, education, and theory rebuttal. This video is not an attack on the creator of the theory, nor will it, unless otherwise stated, address the theory creator personally. Instead, the creator's name in this video will be used as either a name to address the theory by, or to address the assumed mindset of the creator at the time of this video's creation. Unless there is substantial evidence, it is not assumed the creator still stands behind the video in question. If you harass or witch hunt anyone involved with this video, I will personally disown you. Thank you. Alright, you want that dumb ba-bomb video avatar machine? Is that what's gonna fix things around here? Fine, here's your dumb ba-bomb video. What you got, Mad Pat? Oh no. This video isn't actually that bad. Don't get me wrong, it's annoying and it meanders way too much. It could be like half the length it is now. There's nothing I could actually argue about it though. How the heck did it get in my theory queue then? Oh no. That's why this is happening. I put a good game theory video in my queue thinking it was a bad one, and MatPat Karma got me back for it by screwing up my machine and making me admit there are good game theory videos. Curse you, game theory! Ugh. How am I gonna get things back to normal if I can't cover the ba-bomb video? More importantly, what am I supposed to do now? I don't have a video if I don't have a theory to cover, and the machine is holding the rest of my queue hostage. Maybe I'll just, hold on. What has YouTube just blessed me with? Oh my good gosh, it must be Christmas! More of this theory then. Let's see what we're dealing with. Well, we're hitting this one too. Ladies and gentlemen, after the incredible show Gamer Guide and Sega Scourge put on for us with their theory on Silver the Hedgehog's lineage, someone got it in their head to make a clown of themselves trying to upstage them. Everyone, give a big hand for today's special guest, NotLessOrEqual, one of those obnoxious PC master race people self-purportedly. Over the lifespan of his channel, he's uploaded a variety of content from gameplay footage to violin covers, speed paints, Yu-Gi-Oh! Theme songs, more gameplay footage, and one singular theory rebuttal, which just so happens to be on the exact duo of theories I covered in my last video. Lucky me, huh? Today, Equal aims to throw his hat into the ring on the matter of Silver's ancestry, and he's going to do such a bad job of it, it's ridiculous. Want to see what I mean? Let's start the final act!
Recently, on July 10th, two YouTubers, the Sega Scourge and Gamer Guy Aces, have attempted to answer the theory of who could be Silver the Hedgehog's relatives or ancestors. Throughout both theories, including their debates, the candidates for considerations were Amy Rose, Sonic the Hedgehog, Shadow the Hedgehog, and Blaze the Cat, due to their powers, appearances, references to real-life genetics, and inheritances. However, the theory discussed between the Sega Scourge and Gamer Guy Aces have failed to touch very much upon other factors, such as the ones from the Archie Sonic comics universe instead of just only the Sega universe.
Oh! Oh! Oh no! Ah! Ah! No! Don't do this to me! No! I'm actually going to have to go into depth about why the Archie comics aren't canon now, aren't I? My gosh, I've never even read these dumb comics.
Well, let's see. Miss Time Machine's point from the future about the Archie comics getting dumped in favor of IDW isn't enough proof for you, then how about the fact that there are hundreds upon hundreds of Archie exclusive characters that have never once shown up in actual game canon, including many of the comic's main protagonists, like Sally Acorn, Antoine, Bunny, Rotor, and etc. I know they showed up in StatAm too, but that's not canon either, thank you. How about the multiple discrepancies between Archie's interpretations of events versus the actual canon way Sega has told them in the games? And believe me, you don't want to deal with whatever the effects of Mega Man being canon in the Sonic universe would be. Now, I don't actually care to read any of the Archie comics, and when I tried to look this matter up with Google, all I found was a bunch of 12-year-olds bickering. Even so, it seems to be the general consensus that there's absolutely no way the Archie comics are canon, and those that want to say they are have absolutely no evidence to back themselves up. For the sake of this video though, I'll argue the Archie stuff. It's still not canon, but I'll argue it. Now watch how someone that's never read the Archie comics can completely dismantle an argument built solely on the Archie comics.
Another error which they encountered was that they attempted to use real-life genetics for their theory in order to explain the ancestry or relations between Sonic the Hedgehog characters and Silver the Hedgehog. It may apply to real life, but it sure as does not apply to the Sega or Archie universe.
Okay, I can agree with you on this to a degree. I myself argued the crappy use of genetics in Scourge's theory, considering Guy used nothing of the sort. It's also a problem to completely throw conventional genetics out the window, though, as Equal is eventually going to show us.
After doing some personal investigation and general observances of patterns from both the Sega and Archie universes, I've come to the conclusion that the initiators, or prime contributors for Sega's ancestry and family tree, fall under two categories. His ancestry must always consist of one male hedgehog, whilst the female could be of anyone from any species from both past and present, and I'm here to explain why.
Ignoring the fact that the latter stipulation is not only confusing but also superfluous and not at all elaborated on over the course of this entire video, I'm coming back to this whole thing later. Keep this in mind.
So before we begin, viewers should take note that Sega doesn't specify a general term for Sonic and the rest of the species in their universe in one collective term, so we will refer to them as Mobians like Archie Comics originally did. That is before Ken Penders happened. To clear up initial confusion, we can first confirm that Mobians from the Sega universe do reproduce in some way, as evident by the existence of Cream and her mother Vanilla. That is, unless she was adopted and Sega hasn't told us, which so far they have not. Another evidence to confirm that Mobians can indeed reproduce is Knack the Weasel, or Fang the Sniper, or whatever people call him. Cream the Rabbit and Knack the Weasel will be the most important key in bridging this theory between universes, and give us clarity into the lack of information or ambiguity in Mobian relations, reproduction, and ancestry which Sega chooses not to disclose for whatever reason.
And Equal doesn't elaborate on why! Granted, I know why, and it's going to come up later, but that reason isn't even canon to the actual games. If you were looking for Archie examples, you have 1,000,002 others that don't involve Fang. Also, Fang is going to later do some sniping right through the foot of this entire theory. Keep an eye out for that. That's my favorite part.
So let's begin. To begin, we have to first go very deep into how Mobian biology works, how they reproduce, physical and biological traits and possibilities which encompasses it. Let us begin with Shadow the Hedgehog, as he is noted to being the first possible candidate of Silver's ancestral family tree in the original theory. Based on backstory of his creation, visual observances and logical reasoning, I conclude that Shadow the Hedgehog cannot be part of the initiator of Silver's family lineage due to one sole reason.
This reason better be what I think it is.
He most likely cannot reproduce.
Equal body. I know you watched Guy and Scourge's video. I know you had to have seen that part where Scourge brought up that tweet from Takashi Iizuka. That's proof enough. You don't have to go any further.
And here is why. Regarding his background and creation, Shadow is an artificial and synthetic lifeform created in a lab, not just as a living being or creature, but sole primary purpose of being a living, breathing weapon of war. His creation is to serve the same purpose as James Cameron's Terminators, basically.
I mean, Shadow was actually created for research into a cure for Maria's terminal illness, but go on.
Shadow is not initially recognized as a living being, but more of a tool or an experiment to an end. We also know that he is immortal and cannot age. Thus, the need for his capacity to reproduce may not likely have been a consideration or factor biologically in his creation or function thereafter by Gerald Robotnik. In this case, I doubt he could possibly, under any circumstances, be part of Silver's biological ancestral family tree. A robot arm created to manufacture cars, for example, is designed to do one job, and not reproduce. Isn't that the same as Shadow the Hedgehog's original purpose?
No, because your analogy is garbage. Like it or not, Shadow was created as a living being with sentience and free will. Shadow isn't a robot arm that only does one thing and never deviates from his purpose. On top of that, Shadow is biologically classified as a Mobian hedgehog. Whether or not he was created in a lab becomes irrelevant at that point. Gerald Robotnik would not have possibly come out with a Mobian hedgehog if there wasn't something more to Shadow's creation than synthetic life form. Finally, you have absolutely no evidence to say for certain that Shadow is sterile. This is a baseless assumption that you're trying to use as your entire argument. Stick to the facts or I'll continue to beat you over the head with them.
This is of course just a theory based off of observances, reason and logic, and could be untrue. It is more of an absence of evidence rather than evidence for absence.
Unfortunately, absence of evidence does not excuse wild speculation, and it doesn't excuse you using this as your only point to prove Shadow can't be Silver's ancestor. That's not how this game show works. Sit your butt back down.
But let us take a look at the Archie Comics universe. Viewers must take note that Sega and Archie Comics have been through a lawsuit with ex-writer Ken Penders, forcing the entire comics universe to undergo a reboot and retcon. So almost everything to be discussed may no longer apply to the new universe.
Looks like Sonic isn't the only thing Ken Penders is gonna run his Ego-mobile over today. What Equal is talking about, for those of you that aren't savvy, is the Super Genesis Wave, an event that completely reset the canon of the Archie comics, making the backstories of the characters practically identical to those of their game counterparts and completely erasing the creations of Ken, I'll sue you for every echidna you make, Penders. The man that single-handedly ruined everyone's fun and still thinks he can market his crappy drawings on his own. Because of this lawsuit, 244 characters were outright removed from the series and the timeline was completely rebooted. According to the article on the lawsuit and its repercussions from the Sonic Wiki, the Super Genesis Wave was put into effect to A, make sure there were no more legal complications, and to B, keep the comic series more in line with Sega canon. It's arguable if that second goal was actually met, but this means that it's acknowledged that pre-SGW content did not line up with official Sega canon, making for yet another argument as to why at least pre-SGW content cannot be canon. Also, fun fact, the lawsuit caused Sega to mandate that Sonic's world can no longer be called Mobius. Bet you didn't know that one. So congratulations! Super Genesis Wave is going to continue to break down your entire theory bit by bit until it implodes on itself because Ken Penders is a jerk. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming.
I prefer the Archie Comics universe's Silver the Hedgehog over Sega's Silver, as it gives us more information and characters to work with rather than limiting us to just a few possible characters in the Sega universe, at least in my own eyes.
You'll see later why this absolutely doesn't matter in the slightest.
So let us begin. In the Archie universe, it is known that hedgehogs are a common Mobian species, and so we'll be able to broaden our options on possible candidates. Excluding Shadow and Silver for obvious reasons, we open up to more male hedgehogs as possible candidates. For this theory, hedgehogs could include Robbo the Hedge of Mercia, Scourge the Hedgehog, Manic Acorn, and of course Sonic the Hedgehog himself as possible candidates.
Manic Acorn is Sonic's son. Good job. Also, Scourge, Robbo the Hedge, and Sonic's kids were wiped out with the Super Genesis Wave as legally mandated by the lawsuits. So...
Not only that, the advent of Archie's spin-off series, Sonic Universe and Mobius 25 and 30 years later, also confirms that Mobians and their species can not only reproduce, but also interbreed naturally.
Oh, you mean those comics that took place before the Super Genesis Wave with all those kids that got wiped out with the Super Genesis Wave?
Another amazing thing I was able to discover is that Mobian reproduction is not random or up to chance like real-life humans do, but has a distinguished and established pattern. From the evidence given from said comic arcs and issues, we can see a pattern from offsprings between two separate species and same species. Let us begin with our first example. Say a pure-blooded hedgehog such as Sonic and a half-blooded chipmunk such as Sally Acorn, so naming fans please don't kill me, would almost always result in twins, where the born female is forced to take the species of the mother, whilst the born male takes the species of the father 95% of the time.
Sonia and Manic Acorn, don't think I didn't notice the reference, Archie, cheeky of you to assume I don't find it annoying, are actually only twins in the altered version of the future timeline. In a previous interpretation, Manic was considerably younger than Sonia, calling into question this whole twins claim.
We can see this as consistent through other characters such as Tails and Minamongo's kids and even Vector's son Archie. Tails' kids, Melody and Skyprower, also fit this pattern. The male offspring inherits the species of the father whilst the female inherits the species of the mother, but never both at the same time.
Even if you'd wanted to argue that Sonia and Manic Acorn were changed, that doesn't fix the issue of Melody and Sky, who are absolutely not twins. Sky is 6 years younger than Melody, in fact. This means that the twin thing is absolute bunk.
Want more evidence? Take Antoine and Bunny's kids, also born twins mind you, are also consistent with my theory. Belle, the female, takes the species of the mother, Bunny, who is a rabbit, whilst Jacques takes the gender of the father, Antoine, who is a coyote.
Jacques and Belle were never stated to be twins. Also, if you're going to use these two as an example, please explain to me how Bunny's robotic parts got passed down to not just one, but both of her children. That doesn't make sense on any level.
For Archie's case, we cannot tell whether his mum was a crocodile like Vector or even a whole different species due to the fact his mother is never shown. But since Archie was born both a male and takes the species of his father, this biological theory of interspecies breeding still remains consistent. If Archie was in fact born as a pure-blooded crocodile with both his parents being crocodiles, we will leave him a 50-50 chance of being a female or male, unlike the 95% chance of being born a male or female, depending on the species of the different parents.
I still don't know where you're getting this 95% from. So far, you've given absolutely no contradictory examples. If you're going to spit out a number like that, please actually have a reason for it.
In the Archie universe, The other pure-blooded Mobian would be Knuckles' daughter, Lara-su, who was purebred echidna with her mother, Julie-su, also being an echidna.
Oh no! Quick! Get Lara-su out of here before we get...
Even with pure-blooded species, we can also see a distinguishable pattern. Both Sonic, Tails and Knuckles were born from parents who were both the same species and born as single children, while Sally and Elias, on the other hand, were born from mixed species parents who resulted in twins as predicted.
Yeah, still not twins. Elias is the older one and Sally is the younger one. Please quit with this twins nonsense.
In this case, Vector's son Ardril would be a single child if he was born a pure-blooded crocodile, and if not, we would expect him to have a twin sister, right? Let us take a look at this time back to the Sega universe. Who were Sonic, Tails and Knuckles' parents? Short answer is, we either don't know or Sega won't tell us. But we know absolutely for sure who their parents are in the Archie universe, and all three are born from pure-blooded parents with no relatives. Does the Mobian biology theory still stand? Answer is, yes.
Oh, you mean those parents that all got wiped out by the Super Genesis wave? You can't tell me they might still be around either. Sally's parents got changed. Obviously, this isn't a concept we're shying away from here. Once again, we have no idea who Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles' parents are. End of story.
Now, Knack the Weasel from Archie Encyclopedia notes that he is a wolf-weasel hybrid. If my theory of Mobian reproduction is consistent, I can confidently say that Knack's father was a weasel while his mother was a wolf, in this sense. But I managed to find an inconsistency with Knack in the Archie comics, as he also has a twin sister, Nick the Weasel, who defies my Mobian biology theory by being born as a weasel like Knack himself instead of a wolf as expected. But Knack does not have a twin sister in the Sega universe, however, so the theory may still hold up to consistency, so in this case we're not 100% sure whether the theory still holds up. In this case, we may have to take Sega's word for it that Knack is truly a wolf-weasel born of a single child.
Bang, bang, bang! Boy, who knew a cork gun could be so destructive? How does any sane human being go through all this and still think, yeah, this is okay? Here's every single problem with this singular point blank as it were. 1. How many times can I say Super Genesis wave? 2. Wow, look at you, blatantly ignoring contradictory evidence to sell a narrative. Based on absolutely everything you've predicated your video on, you have absolutely no excuse to disregard Girl Weasel. 3. Are you actually throwing out Girl Fang because she's not in Sega canon? Seriously? If that's the criteria we're using now, then not a single shred of evidence you've brought up so far is credible. You can't just pick and choose. Either the Archie comics are your evidence or they're not, because they're not canon. You don't get to have it both ways. 4. Playing devil's advocate, there's actually nothing to say Girl Fang couldn't exist in the games, besides the fact that she was made by Ken Penders and Sega doesn't want to touch anything of his with a 10-foot pole. Even so, that doesn't rule out the possibility of Fang having a sister that looks like him, so even that is faulty. 5. Just the fact that Fang is a wolf-weasel hybrid alone is enough to put a bullet in the foot of this theory. This fact was conceived by Sega themselves to cover for the whole wolf-like features that this supposed weasel was flaunting, and also picked up when Fang hit the Archie comics. This fact about Fang is 100% canon. This subsequently means that Fang has features of both a wolf and a weasel, an impossibility by this theory's rules. In summary, Fang hit the self-destruct button on your theory. Whoops!
Another thing regarding the Sega Excursion Gamer Guy Ace's original theory is that power is indeed confirmed inheritable, but only in the Archie universe and not in the Sega universe. Both Tails' and Sonic's children in the future inherit each of their powers, such as Sonic's super speed and Sky's ability to fly. So it appears that artificial powers are also inheritable. This supports the Sega Excursion Gamer Guy Ace's theory of not only power inheritance, but also makes it possibly traceable.
Traceable my rear end. It's no more traceable with your theory than it was with Guy and Scourge. Actually, on the other hand, it kind of is, but that's not even really relevant, as we'll get back to later. Point is, with powers being inheritable from either side of the family, more potent when freaking robo-kids are taken into consideration, it becomes like any other genetic trait, and tracing it comes down to guesswork.
But this is where their line ends. Power inheritance is only visible and confirmed in the Archie Comics universe, but not in the Sega universe. At least not confirmed as of yet. For the Sega universe, we are given nearly no evidence of power inheritance, which throws the Sega Excursion Game Guy Ace's theory of power inheritance as a traceable lead right out the window. However, they are not entirely wrong if we reference them to the Archie universe.
Okay, despite what I've touted, lack of evidence does not immediately throw something out the window. It's only when there's contradictory evidence or if said lack of evidence works against all odds that a lack of evidence can toss a theory into a dumpster. So far, you have yet to demonstrate either. It's still entirely likely that power inheritance is a thing in the Sega universe, and in this case, you're the one making a wild claim without evidence. You, sir, are creating a situation where Guy and Scourge are wrong just because you said so. Stop it.
Since Cream the Rabbit and Knack the Weasel are our only leading connection for both Archie and Sega universes, we will heavily base our theories on them for now. It does not appear whether Cream inherited a flying ability from her mother, as we never saw her mother Vanilla flying with both her ears before, only Cream. In the Archie universe, the only pure-blooded Mobian would be Knuckles' daughter, lara-su, who was a pure-bred echidna with her mother, Julie-su, also being an echidna. In both light and dark Mobius, we can see that she inherits her power of chaos control from her father, supporting the power inheritance possibility put forward by the Sega Scourge and Game Guy Aces.
Okay, so I don't know how I didn't realize this earlier, but Equal is working off of a perception of Guy and Scourge's theories that isn't even correct. At all. Guy and Scourge's perceptions of power inheritance were not straightforward like you're trying to imply. In fact, if that's what they were arguing, there would be no possible way for them to get from Shadow and Blaze or Sonic and Amy to Silver. In Guy's case, he argued that aspects of Shadow and Blaze's power would mix together. In Scourge's case, he argued that Sonic's powers would enhance Amy's psychic abilities. Both explanations were convoluted as heck with very little logic behind them, but they were not arguing in the way you're implying they did. That would ironically make even less sense. Straight power inheritance would rule out every single character from both Sega canon and the Archie universe, as Silver is, to my knowledge, the only character that exists in either that has the powers he does. End of story.
But what power, if any, does Knack inherit? Skills of a sharpshooter, as it says on the Mobius Encyclopedia? Due to the fact Knack is barely touched upon or is information updated by Sega themselves, this information may not be a reliable indicator.
But why, though? What reason do you have to possibly not believe that? Because it's not a real power? Bad news for you, buddy. Sharpshooting can come forth through superior eyesight and reflexes, which Fang seems to have in superhuman capacity. Like it or not, that's a superpower, friend. Also, are we going to forget about the superpower that Fang undeniably has? His stupid tail, man. Remember the stupid tail.
This leads us to Knack the Weasel. In his official character profile at Sega.com it reads, quote, Fang the Sniper, aka Knack the Weasel, this slick wolf weasel who has only one thing in mind, Chaos Emeralds. He doesn't want to rule the world or anything like that, but he knows the prize of glittering jewels will bring a pretty hefty price from the right bidder. Emphasis on the word, wolf weasel.
Yes? And?
Even in the Mobius Encyclopedia, the Archie universe, he is also confirmed officially as a wolf weasel hybrid too. However, due to the fact he is a very old character who no longer makes any new appearances, we do not know whether this information is up to date.
Yes? And? Also, if it hasn't been debunked, then it's still canon information. Don't even try to play that game.
Regardless, we now have evidence that interspecies breeding is possible both in the Archie universe and the Sega universe, which broadens our options of candidates as to who may be the starting point of Silver's family tree.
Except that Fang is a hybrid, also proving that hybridization is a factor in Mobian genetics. In case you forgot, we're talking about Silver here, who is a full-blooded hedgehog, not a hybrid.
Which is, at this point, well, anyone. So let us narrow down our theoretical verdicts. Number 1. Shadow the Hedgehog cannot reproduce.
I love that most likely you put up there and then proceeded to not say just to make your argument seem stronger when it was actually built on one baseless assumption that you can't even prove.
Number 2. Mobian interspecies breeding is possible in both universes. Our options are broadened.
Not that it's going to matter, spoiler alert.
Number 3. Power inheritance in some form or another is indeed possible for the Archie universe, but not confirmed for the Sega universe. Number 4. When interspecies breeding happens, twins always result, with the male taking the species of the father, whilst the female takes the species of the mother, but never both at the same time.
1. Get out of here with the twins talk that's not even true. 2. Love how you put siblings there to once again cover your rear end. And 3. Tell that to your wolf-weasel hybrid again.
Number 5. Pure-blooded offsprings can take the gender of either parent and are born a single child.
Okay, I'm starting to have problems with your really wonky logic here. What
what you're essentially saying is that every single interspecies relationship has to produce 2 children, while pure-blooded relationships produce the normal amount of 1. This would be a bit more fine if your twin thing actually held up, but since it doesn't, it leaves a big question hanging in the air. Let's use Sky and Melody as an example. Sky and Melody are 6 years apart, meaning Melody came first, then Sky after a period of 6 years. How the absolute flying frick do you even explain that with this whole interspecies must make 2 children nonsense? Tails and Mina had to have made the conscious decision to have another kid considering we're talking about a period of 6 freaking years. They could have just stopped at Melody if they wanted to. Also, to further challenge your pure-blooded can only make 1 point, let's talk about Lyko and Lita, a pair of twin wolves that are also from the Archie comics. Make no mistake about it, these two are either twins that ended up the same species, which goes against the twin thing you keep touting, or they're pure-blooded twins, which goes against your pure-blood point. Either way, these two throw a wrench in your genetics. Heck, there's probably even more examples I'd probably be savvy on if I cared to read the comics. In short, go back to the drawing board. Also, recording Miku here. This one's gonna be unscripted, but hello, Sonic Underground. Manic and Sonya. Yeah, you want your entire genetics point blown out of the water? Manic and Sonya. And yes, they are still canon in the Archie universe. There's an arc where Sonic actually goes to Sonic Underground. If Sonya and Manic are canon in the Archie comics, that means that this whole genetic thing is bunk.
Number 6. To begin Silver's family tree, one of the relatives or ancestors must most likely have been a hedgehog at any given time. Number 7. The mother or female side of the family, however, does not require the presence of a hedgehog, and therefore could be any species.
Except unless Silver has some unknown sibling of another species, which you don't have the evidence for, so you should just throw it out like that pesky power inheritance thing. Don't think I didn't notice that again, Equal. He needs to be born of 2 hedgehogs, not just 1. Which means Silver's mother needs to have a hedgehog mother, and that hedgehog needs to have a hedgehog mother, and that hedgehog needs to have a hedgehog mother. Good going, genius.
So far, there is only one male hedgehog in existence in the Sega universe, who is both natural born and theoretically may reproduce naturally, excluding Shadow the Hedgehog or Mephiles the Dark.
I'm going to scream. What was the point of bringing up all those Archie hedgehogs earlier if you were only going to look at hedgehogs in the game universe? Furthermore, what was the point of using the Archie comics at all if you were going to base your conclusions on the game universe? Yeah, I have a problem. You using the whole lack of power inheritance evidence in the Sega universe as a point is more of a problem than you think. This means that anything you use from the Archie comics that has no evidence of existing in the Sega universe can immediately be thrown in the garbage as well. You don't get to be picky-choosy like that. This means that your entire genetics theory is stupid because there's no evidence of it applying to the universe of the games. Did you even stop to realize that that's what you just did?
And the evidence so far leaves us with, drumroll please, Sonic the Hedgehog as a prime candidate for either the contributor or beginning of Silver's family tree. So far. This is until Sega decides to introduce other male hedgehog characters into the light. But who is the female spouse, you may ask? Well, for some Amy shippers, sorry to say that the female could be anyone, not limited to Amy Rose in this case, if the theory of mode in biology and reproduction stands consistent.
You're not even going to make a speculation on who the female is. That's an absolute riot. Now I know why you slipped that sort of into the title of your video. You don't want to make a theory, you just want to tell Guy and Scourge why they're supposedly wrong. That's the big problem with all this, by the way. You completely missed the context of Guy and Scourge's theories. Now, Guy did stand behind the Archie comics, so you might have had him. Scourge, though, didn't use a single shred of Archie nonsense in his theory. His theory was solely based on the games. That means using the Archie comics to try to debunk Scourge's theory is a complete waste of time and only serves to make you look like an idiot that's trying to shove Archie where it doesn't belong. As for Guy, well, he believes Shadow couldn't be the father despite Izuka's tweet that clearly said he wasn't, so maybe he wouldn't have had him after all. I don't know. Every time I think I know Guy, he goes and confuses me again. On its own, though, Equal's theory was filled with blatant inconsistencies that he wanted to sweep under the rug because apparently the Archie comics are gospel. Except when they aren't, but Equal doesn't care, right? The problem is, Fang is a hybrid, the Super Genesis wave happened, and Equal wanted to haphazardly throw things out without realizing that if he throws out the Archie Comics power inheritance and Nick the Weasel, he throws out the rest of his genetics theory with it. It's like trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle and choosing to ignore a whole group of pieces because you don't like that part of the image. You don't have a complete picture without them. Do the puzzle right or throw it in the trash. Also, I'm suing Equal for every single uncomfortable image I had to see over the course of researching for this theory. Having to wade through troves of Sonic characters making out is enough to make me want to vomit. Well, back to having no leads on how to fix this stupid machine. If I want to get things back to normal, I'm gonna have to get creative. Wait. What if... No, it's too crazy. It'll never. But if all this is a sign, then maybe... Well, I guess I'm hitting game theory after all.